We're here at CoinSummit with Zach Harvey, CEO of Lamassu, and Evan Rose, CEO of Genesis Coin. So gentlemen, you're both ATM producers, which I'm a big fan of ATMs. I think this is a total killer app for Bitcoin. It allows you put it anywhere and anybody can just walk up with dollars and exchange with Bitcoins. No real trust involved. The individual local Bitcoins can be a little scary. I want to kind of compare and contrast the two. You know, there's a lot of talks. Both your companies are big and you got a lot of people following it. But you kind of tell me what makes Lamassu better than RoboCoin and Genesis Coin?
Well, what I like about our machine is it's built from the ground up, especially for Bitcoin, using the simplicity of the platform of Bitcoin. You really don't need anything else but the blockchain. And the thing that takes the longest, of course, is putting in the cash side. Everything else is immediate. So we kind of stripped down everything that we didn't feel was necessary from the standard ATMs and kind of created a new machine that we call the Bitcoin machine.
Cool. What's the unit price on those?
Our machines go for $5,000 each, or $4,000 for bulk orders. They are cash in, Bitcoin out, extremely fast and user friendly.
Okay, but only cash in and Bitcoin out, not the other way around?
Not the other way around,
Okay.
That's correct. Now that has pros and cons as well. Obviously the con is that you can't get cash out. But the idea of having it at least as a separate machine is that there are some jurisdictions that see an ATM of cash out and they're like, no, we can't do this. And one example of that is what just happened in Taiwan, where Taiwan heard about a Bitcoin ATM coming in and they're like, no, that's illegal. And yet with our machine, we just launched one in Taiwan because it's only Bitcoin out.
Okay. So how's Genesis Coin compared to that? Obviously you can do cash in and out, correct?
Yeah, so we benefit from using a platform that's more traditional to an ATM in that we have all of the necessary peripherals to accommodate standard ATM transactions. While we don't use them at this time for that, it opens up some future potential to, if it ever gets to the point where it's a savory proposition for traditional banks to get on board, we could very quickly integrate with traditional ATM networks. And I think I'd like to touch upon the fact that we've adopted this acronym ATM to describe these Bitcoin machines, really. And it's a bit of a misnomer in the sense that it's pretty far flung from what people are really used to using when they talk about ATMs. But at the same time, we've chosen to go with a manufacturer, Gen Mega, that's one of the world's leading ATM manufacturers because they've been able to provide us with quite a bit of expertise with respect to product development, design, R&D, as well as logistics. So we're very well positioned to deploy units anywhere in the world, wherever the demand may arise. Unlike just a simple cash-in system, we do also provide cashing out capabilities. And it's very unique in that it can be very, very fast, or depending on how the operator chooses to run their business and their risk tolerance, they can set network confirmations or low thresholds for zero confirmation cash out. So ideally, I think going forward, we're going to look to adapt our platform to really harden it so that you can get cash out any amount quickly on the spot, scan the QR code with your phone, click send. The moment that transaction is detected on the network and has received appropriate propagation, boom, your cash is out and you can go on with your day.
Very cool. And what's the unit cost on yours?
It starts at $14,500, depending on if you need biometrics or not relevant to your jurisdiction. We can add a fingerprint scanner, and of course, if you go bulk 10 orders plus, you start to see 10% discount.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds like you guys have both got some different features and slightly different market for similar products.
Yeah, well, I mean, my understanding of the Bitcoin machine is that it serves a very, very good. The use case is getting Bitcoin, to the people. Mm-hmm. Cash in, frankly, we're not as fast as the Lamassu unit. Maybe not as elegant or as sleek either.
It's pretty slick.
And I think that they've done a great job in terms of taking Bitcoin into the mainstream as sort of a conversational piece. I mean, when you see the Lamassu unit, immediately you know, whoa, this is something new. This is something interesting. What is that over there in the corner? When you look at our machine, it's a much more familiar interface of a normal ATM. Right. Which has its upsides and of course its downsides. I mean, there's a risk that there's going to be confusion when somebody uses it at an attempt to do it as a normal ATM transaction. So I think in the future it might be more obvious that the standard ATM factor has its upsides. But for currently, the purpose for us choosing the normal ATM factor is that it's a time-tested true platform that's deployed around the world thousands and thousands of times. And with enough branding and marketing around it, you can kind of get people into this new technology, but under the guise of a very familiar platform.
You guys both have U.S. manufacturing? Or?
You want to talk to that?
Well, all of our manufacturing is in Portugal.
Oh, wow.
So everything from the product design until the export, including the manufacturing, assembly, etc., is all done in Portugal, which has benefits such as shipping in Europe is
Right.
extremely easy. And the U.S. is actually relatively easy to ship into, so I don't think we miss too much out on that. Well, as in shipping to Europe could be kind of difficult.
So our manufacturer is based out of South Korea, but they do final configuration, quality assurance in actually San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
So we benefit from having a presence of shipping to the eastern markets very quickly because we can go direct from the plant as they do QA config there as well. But we also have a unique footprint on the west coast of California actually, so we can also ship Mexico very easily. But global logistics, I'm learning, is quite a complicated affair.
Difficult.
It's very difficult to import electronics into a lot of different countries. So
Where are you guys seeing the most demand for these? Where do you think these are really going to take off at?
we're seeing a lot of demand actually from Europe and the Eastern markets. The majority of our large unit orders that we're seeing interest from are from Hong Kong, Macau, but then we're also seeing quite a bit of interest developing now in South America, Brazil, and really I think that's a function of the people that are reaching out to us are the most part relatively savvy Bitcoin enthusiasts that just so happen to be positioned in areas of the world that they feel, for instance, in Hong Kong, cash, people carry large amounts of cash. So it's much easier for somebody to go up to a machine and quickly just put in a lot of bills as opposed to hooking up their bank accounts, et cetera. And that rings true in a lot of places, but specifically in Eastern markets where people are very accustomed to walking around with large amounts of cash. And of course, the South American environment has its own whole host of benefits. And I believe Brock Pierce was talking earlier about there's 200 currencies in the world, maybe 4 that you're actually comfortable holding on to.
Right. Are either of you operating any ATMs? Or I should say, actually, you don't actually operate the ATMs, correct?
Right.
Correct.
Right. Are there any of your ATMs operating in the United States currently?
Right now, we have 2 units en route to Washington, D.C. and Pennsylvania. I'm not specifically sure the exact deployment date that those operators are looking at, but they should be live relatively shortly. And it's something that we struggle with because, for instance, talking with the gentleman from Treasury OFAC here today, there is a much higher barrier of operating something that can be considered in some ways a financial service in the United States.
And does Lamassu have any ATMs in the U.S.?
Yes, we currently have 2 operational machines. They're both in, one's in Boston, one's in Cambridge. They're doing very well right now, and it's close to where I am in New Hampshire, so that's exciting. And I know that we have a lot. We've already shipped a considerable amount of machines to the U.S., and they're just trying to figure out a lot of the last procedures they have to go for regulatory requirements. With again, not wanting to end up in prison.
Right. It's understandable.
Right. So it is taking longer. We've shipped our first machine to the U.S. in, I think, October. And that machine is not operational yet for that exact reason. They're trying to figure out exactly what has to be done to stay out of trouble. And these are people that do not want to go to prison.
So would you say that's the biggest barrier to entry for these people? They don't want to risk going to prison. It's not a matter of stocking it with $20,000 in cash or anything like that. It's just simply they're afraid that the cops are going to show up one day and they're going to get arrested.
Absolutely.
For money transmission.
Absolutely. There are 2 issues that people have to handle when they get a new machine. 1, where am I going to place it? 2, what is the regulatory environment in this area? And where am I going to place it is something that can usually be solved either before they get the machine or several weeks showing it around and they'll find a place to put it. Regulatory requirements isn't that simple. It's something that however easy you think it is and however much how many resources you put into it, you're going to need more.
Right.
And the price of our machine starts seeming like peanuts compared to the amount of money you can spend on legal fees for getting this set up in the U.S. So it's something we do our best to make clear to people before they get the machines for the U.S. But at the same point, there are a lot of people who understand what they have to do in the U.S. and are currently working on it. So I think it's the kind of thing that will just take a bit longer, but I do expect to see a lot more of our machines throughout the U.S. And we're getting more orders from the U.S. than we did at first. So I think once people have already seen, okay, Lamassu already has 2 operators that are actually working in the U.S., they seem to be fine. Maybe we should get one too and put it wherever. We have one actually. We have one really serious operator in New York who's been working and talking to the regulators a lot, and I think he's fairly close to launching one in New York City. And I think that will be important for realizing that, you know, New York City is a pretty tough regulatory environment. You do it in New York City. If some machines launch in California, it could probably be done anywhere in the U.S. Everywhere is going to be easier than New York City and California.
What about a fee? Is there an ongoing fee that you charge to use this ATM? And also, could you walk through a little bit of the flow, how it works when someone buys or sells, like relating to how it connects to an exchange or something like that?
So our business model is I think different than Genesis Coin, RoboCoin, in the sense that we just sell the hardware and the software. We do not have any really centralized server that we're working on, and we do not take any of the cut of the transactions. So once you buy the machine, it's yours to operate, and the software that we're working on now will enable the operators to actually have their own server, and everything, their whole back end will be based on their own server and their own control, and will be completely out of our control. So we'll give them basically all the flexibility they need as far as exchanges, tickers, wallets, security, etc. And we just make sure that everything works.
Yeah, the Genesis coin I primarily view us as a software development company that has a strong industry manufacturing facility behind it. We focus on the software development, and as a result, I view it more as software as a service. So you buy an ATM machine from us, but we provide you a robust operating backend as well as future development in exchange for a 1% transactional fee of volume that goes through the machine. From the backend, in terms of pricing, liquidity, it's really up to the operator how they want to run their business. We give them full control over whether they'd like to hold Bitcoin inventory and have carry risk, potentially positive carry risk, or they can route every order directly through an exchange, simply hold US dollar balance on an exchange like Bitstamp or CoinTrader, CoinSetter, and in that way they can sort of determine, are we running a business where we lock in our profit at the moment of sale, or are we going to decide to hold some inventory, place small directional bets on the markets? There's definitely benefits of having a small amount of inventory in terms of the fluidity of the customer's experience. For instance, I know using the Lamassu earlier, you put that dollar in, my Bitcoin hit my phone immediately. And that's what we strive for as well, because frankly, it can be a little bit disruptive to the customer experience if they've put cash in and then they're sort of waiting for an exchange to process a withdrawal for them. So really, we want to introduce Bitcoin into people's minds as a way of instantaneously transmitting value around the world. And as a result, certainly the operators take on a small amount of risk in carrying Bitcoin inventory, and as exchanges come on with faster API withdrawals, we'll probably improve that experience without the necessary carry risk. But it's really the price that you're going to see at the machine has a fee associated with the convenience and instantaneous nature of the product that you're receiving. And when you compare, like for instance, I've been traveling internationally using TravelX. I did the math. They made around 12% converting my US dollars to Canadian dollars. And that's the spread of the Forex, but they also have service fees and surcharges. And frankly, I think the Bitcoin ATM cash market is going to be far more competitive, even with fees baked in, as opposed to traveling internationally, for instance, and doing traditional Forex exchanges. So I think that's a huge positive, where I know in the talks earlier, they were speaking about developing countries where they don't necessarily have access to traditional finance. These ATMs or other cash to Bitcoin facilities allow somebody that doesn't have a credit card to very quickly put cash into a machine and then use that to transact online. Whereas there's a lot of money in these developing nations where they don't necessarily have a credit card or debit card to do online transactions. Bitcoin opens the door up for global consumerism like we've never seen before.
No, I think this is a great thing for Bitcoin. I think you guys both have great products. I've used the Lamassu. I'm waiting to use yours, and I've heard great things about it. So looking forward to it. Thanks for coming on the show.
All right.
Thank you.
See you guys around.
Thanks a lot.